Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Keep the Line Moving, the podcast designed to talk about leadership, life, and inspiration. I'm your host, Chris Gargano, and for episode 72, we're talking leadership athlete. What is this concept? Well, we will uncover it with our guest, Shauna Griffiths, who was an athlete. She played basketball at the University of Michigan in her undergrad years. Then she went on to get her MBA at Eastern Michigan University, where she ran cross country and track. She then entered the professional business world, getting jobs at Nike, and she was the director of marketing for the NBA's Nets. Then it was on to SVP, Strategic Marketing, Partnerships, and Communications at Lead Dog Marketing Group. Then in 2020, she pivoted and created her company, SLG Impact, designed as a purpose-driven platform born out of the need and desire to maximize impact, evolving people and brands. And we are going to discuss all of this, including leadership athlete. The conversation begins now with Shauna Griffiths. All right, Shauna, it is wonderful to see you. It's great to talk to people who I really enjoy speaking with, who I was introduced to by a mutual friend of ours, and it's just wonderful to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I was so pleasantly surprised when I got your email the other day about this, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, yes, anytime, let's go." Because the first time we talked, we just had such synergy about the way we think about operating in the seat of leadership and our sports background. I just really welcome the opportunity to talk to you anytime.
Thank you, Shauna, and likewise. So let's talk about this, Shauna. What you're doing now is so fascinating. How would you explain where you are right now? So rather than going from the beginning to the middle to the end, I'm going from the end and maybe we'll work our way backwards. But I'm so intrigued about the curious nature that you've had and the courage that you've had to be where you are now.
Yeah, thank you. It's funny that you reference the word courage because it's something that I've been thinking a lot about recently. Those of us who are creative and strategic and we're constantly putting out new ideas, connecting with new people, creating opportunities, there is a risk in putting something out and making it subjected to people's opinions, or are people going to like it or not. And so it is something that I am grateful that I'm kind of just pushing myself forward, and I do think there is a bit of courage with it. So what I'm doing now, I am doing some coaching and consulting. I have created a platform called Leadership Athlete, which my t-shirt says.
Mm-hmm.
And it is really designed to help people and organizations operate at their highest optimal performance. Again, you can do that through coaching. I work with people one-on-one with in workshop settings. And I also do work related to growth for an organization. And the two aren't completely separate. I fully believe that when you work in a coaching capacity and someone is able to operate at their best and truly be authentic and figure out where their strongest, where their energies lie, then you can really be bringing your best forward to the work, to the people, and then the work starts to kind of take care of itself. But it is all aimed at learning, growing, and evolving.
So, and I said this in the intro, you were an athlete in college twice. You were a basketball player and you ran track and field getting your MBA, correct? Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm dialed in there. So, and I played some baseball in college as well. So I get it. I get the commitment it takes to play at that level. Okay, so what in your background or your journey linked the two? So what you just articulated there is, okay, I was a college athlete at the University of Michigan at the highest level. Here's what it took. Then I became a great in marketing and digital and content, all the greatness that you've had in your career, which we'll get to. How did you link the two, that there's such an equal commitment to being great here as well?
Yeah. I think my athletic background really taught me the fundamentals of that I talk about as the leadership athlete way is, that resilience, that commitment to being better than ever yesterday, to being coachable. And those are all things that those are the way I operated. So when I went from college into my career, I really didn't have people around me who were opening up doors or pointing me in the direction. This is quite a while ago, so there was a different way that people are operating nowadays. So I just relied upon what made me successful athletically. And that was, again, those things of showing up, putting in my reps, learning from my mistakes. For me, it was just a very organic transfer of characteristics that helped me to be successful again in athletics, that helped me and transfer them to business. And then, as I continue my career, there was just something about how I operated with my colleagues and with the people that once I started actually leading people who were air quotes working for me, um, leading people and being really intentional about developing them. Again, I looked at it as they were almost athletes that were developing and they wanted to get to the next level just as I did. So I was, again, just applying things organically. And so I started doing some coaching along the way. Unfortunately, fortunately, lost my job in the beginning of the pandemic, and then threw myself more into coaching. That's when I started SLG Impact, and I was doing more like marketing and partnership work. And that was really about how can I be myself, my best self? How can I be completely authentic during a time that was really difficult? Again, I was applying those same things that I knew from athletics about being resilient, about, you know, going into the gym every day and putting up my shots, even if nobody else was in the gym. And then I worked for another company for a short bit. And then once again, when the tech downturn happened, I found myself without a job. And I was like, okay, universe, I hear you. You're telling me something. So I really have just been channeling myself into, I talk about it as reinvention. And I really believe that we should be able to reinvent ourselves as many times as we need to along the way to become who we're meant to be.
So let me ask you this. When that unfortunate or fortunate situation happened during COVID and
Yes.
you were forced to pivot and understand, okay, here's the world, how do I fit in? Why do you think leadership and employee development and culture creation and the leadership athlete, I know it all didn't come to you at once, but why do you think you gravitated towards that rather than going in some other area like a marketing agency or developing something along those lines to help people in a freelance standpoint? Like, why was it this, do you think, now
Yeah.
looking back?
Couple of reasons. One is the reality of what I was seeing in the seat of leadership in a lot of areas and what was going on during that time was unacceptable to me. I want to see and I want to be a part of people being in a seat of leadership with intention to help create positive impact, to help people to develop and evolve. And at the time, what we were seeing was a lot. We saw the murder of George Floyd, we saw an attack on women's rights, we saw these things happening. And I truly, as a straight white woman, felt like if I am not being part of the solution in society, in business, then I'm being part of the problem. And it's just how I am authentically. So I started my podcast, which we were talking about earlier, that is on pause right now, but it's called This with Shauna Griffiths. And the mission of it is to elevate diverse, authentic voices and of leaders. And so that was probably one of the first expressions, more public and, really using my voice and really bringing other diverse, authentic leaders forward, because I was seeing things that I didn't think were acceptable, like I said, in the seat of leadership. And I thought, well, I'm not going to talk negatively about people who are operating that way. I'm actually just going to work to galvanize people I think are really great examples, because it's a form of representation. In the seat of leadership, you can look and sound and be a certain way that isn't maybe stereotypical, historical. And one of the biggest things I hear when I talk to people is a negative impression of people in leadership seats. So it's been my desire to be a positive force in helping to transform that.
You used the term unacceptable. So during 2020, after your job situation took place, you said that there was unacceptable areas of leadership. That's what you said, right? And you probably lived it yourself, right? We all have. We all have
Yes.
had leaders that, and leadership situations and leaders we have observed, etc. You know
Mhm.
where I'm going with this, that we
Yeah,
learn from in ways not to do certain things. Let's be honest,
exactly.
right? And then you
Yeah,
see things
absolutely.
in great leaders and people that care and have empathy and welcome you and
Mhm.
mentor, whatever those things that you need as an individual are, they're taking care of that. And you say, wow, that person has left an impact on me. So my
Yes.
question to you is, Shauna, is there enough? This is a 50,000-foot question. Is
Okay.
there enough conversation about these issues going on today?
I think a lot of times it's talked about. I think that there's a lot of fear in talking about it. My choice is to actually shift the conversation and focus on a path forward that people can get on and we can develop a way forward together and we can elevate these people because part of the thing is I'm sick and tired of giving and seeing people that are operating in an unacceptable way the light, talking about them, putting them out front. It's like it just doesn't really do. I guess my question is, does that do a lot of good? So again, that's just my philosophy is I don't want to give those folks energy. I just want to focus on grabbing folks and becoming champions together.
So let's look at somebody, right? They don't have the great background that you do, some don't. But they go to college, they come into the professional world, and let's say they had a little bit of athletic training and they work hard to be good at something, a softball player, a basketball, tennis, whatever the case may be. Then they get into the professional world, and this is how they feed themselves, pay their bills. And then they stop that extra form of being great, to your point. They just show up to work. That would be like just showing up to practice or just showing up to school, right? Not doing homework or not
Mm-hmm.
studying or not working hard or going to the gym. We
Mm-hmm.
are so aligned in that. That is the thing that you said it's a nice to have. How could leadership training be a nice to have when it's the most important thing you're doing?
It's so true. And it was part of the way that I have always worked with people that I was leading. And so when I would see them I would actually make the time for them. I would actually talk to them about their growth. I would actually talk to them if something wrong happened. I didn't berate them for it. I was like, okay, what are we going to learn from this? Or there's a lot of times that I say to people, well, I screwed this up for me. And, again, it's that like what a coach would do. You're paying it forward. You're coaching someone to get there faster, maybe than you did. I do think there's a lot of us who are longing for something that is bigger than just us. And that's part of the leadership athlete way as well. It's like you're doing this work for yourself, for others, and for the greater good. And if you look at a team environment, a sports team environment, same thing. You're out there to make yourself better. You want to hit your jump shots. You also want your team, you want your teammates to do well. You want to contribute, you want to play a role within the team, and you want the team to win. So, again, I look at it as if you transfer that to business, it's kind of the same concepts. You want to do well, you want to get promoted, you want to get more money, you want your colleagues to be doing well and all kind of, in harmony. And you want to walk into the office or join a Zoom call and feel that you've got camaraderie and you want to launch something successfully, you want to win the pitch, whatever that you do as a team. So again, those yourself, others, and the greater good is what you're working for. So I want to see that from early on, but it takes someone who is building the organization, running the organization, who's going to make that a part of the fabric of the organization.
So, Shauna, what would you say to somebody who's coming out of college and maybe they got an MBA, maybe they didn't, and they're ready to start their career and they start to be like you, get into leadership positions pretty quickly, right? I mean, you were director of marketing at the Nets at a very young age, and and you grew and you were there for a long time. So, what would you say to someone similar to Shauna emerging as a leader in a significant role?
Yeah. The first part of it is get in touch with who you are authentically. I think it's the more we understand what makes us tick and how we our tendencies and we're really honest with ourselves about that, that's the part about authenticity that I think is really important because then we can understand, okay, why am I doing certain things? When being aware of what is the impact that I have on others, learning how to a bit of controllables. Those are the fundamental things of start with ourselves first. It's like we have to look inside first. Actually, I had Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan's mindset coach, George Mumford, on my show. He was awesome, by the way. And he has this whole thing where he says it's an inside job. Getting to know yourself is an inside job. And it really is. But that's my first thing. And then the other thing is really be aware of the people around you and who you're able to learn from. And to your point you were saying earlier, you may be in a situation where you learn from someone who is an exemplary leader. Great. Not that frequently. That doesn't happen all that frequently. And, I think that you are around someone who's demonstrating things that, again, I would call unacceptable, that just don't really gel with you. You're like, something isn't right here. Observe. There are things to be learned from that. I really think that some of what I've learned more almost from people doing things that I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that as a part of my journey forward as a leader. And, so I think those are foundational elements. My thing is be a sponge.
Now I want to know about your company. Where are we going with SLG? Talk to us.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm continuing to put out content under the umbrella, whether it's writing, like video content. So that is part of what I will always continue to do. Like I said, I am doing coaching one-on-one with people in a leadership capacity, as well as workshops. And then there's the consulting side, because I do really love to still do the growth related to business, growth related to agencies. It's my ability to pour in all that I know about business, growing a business, branding, taking care of people, all of those things that I've learned throughout my career. I'm actually applying them to SLG Impact and to the clients that I have. So that's part of, I think, is like the beauty of what I'm doing as well. It's not that I all of a sudden decided to like chuck my abilities in marketing and alliances and strategy and growth. I'm actually bringing it all into what I've created. And I'm living what I'm talking about, which is working every day to perform, optimally.
You've had such an incredible career. Nike, the Nets, Lead Dog. I mean, I could go on and on. When you look back at your career leading up to being an entrepreneur, which you are now and doing quite well, which job or which area in your life professionally stands out to you?
My time at the Nets and my time at Nike. And the time at the Nets was 7.5 years. My time at Nike was like, I don't know, maybe a year and a half or so, because it was part of their WNBA program. But again, it's because of the people that I was around. It's because of the Felicia Hall Allens, the Fred Mangiones, the Petra Popes, the people who were in those seats that created such an impact on my career. And I was also really fortunate to be able to be put in a position where I was trusted to run things out. And it was kind of that period of time where it was like the Wild West. We were like launching social media and websites. And I remember I launched email at the Nets. I mean, things that were back then, it was just like all that stuff was exploding at once. And so I got my hands on a lot of things. So I think I developed really quickly in a lot of different areas. But I can't say enough about the leaders that I was around at that time that just, I owe them so much. And I've spent a lot of my time in putting out content and calling them out and honoring them and thanking them. And it just simply is because I feel that it was really rare for me to have those people in my life. And like, I literally cannot thank them enough and honor them enough.
I just asked you to highlight this incredible career, which has included Nike, agency work. You were at the Nets for all those years, director of marketing, right? You got promoted at some of your most recent jobs, right? And yet when I asked you about your career, you went right to the people and the feelings that they gave you as you were emerging as a professional, and allowing you to have your voice be heard, allowing you to be part of and be promoted and really, really contribute to the success of these organizations. And you mentioned names, and you can't thank them enough. See, that's the point, Shauna. And so that's why this cultivation of conversation about leadership is so important, if I may say. So that's a
Yeah,
credit to you.
absolutely.
You're living it. You just lived it, and you're backing up what you stand for, which I think is wonderful.
Thank you so much. You gave me the chills.
Oh,
No, it's a really special. I truly believe that being in a leadership capacity is an honor and a privilege. You have people, that's why I talk about it as people in your care. And I'm not perfect and I screw things up. And, sometimes I said to my husband, oh God, that person's going to hate me now or like talk crap about me. My husband's like, it's not going to be the first person. And it's just because, again, we're not perfect. And this is not, oh, I'm so great. I'm going to teach everybody about how to be a leader and follow me. No, it's all we are on this journey together. And that's why it's putting in work every day and learning and growing and evolving and sharing.
I think back at all the stops I've had throughout my career, and it's all about people. Yes, it was
Mhm.
fun to cover the NBA playoffs and the U.S. Open and all those wonderful, great events and go to the Super Bowl, things of that nature. But it's all about the people. It's
Yeah.
all about that impact. And I would go on and on about mentioning names, but leaders that I've worked for that just cared. I'm having to restrain myself, or else I'd give a list of like 50 people, just like you did.
Oh,
It's
come on. You got to drop some. I know. I did.
all right. I'll drop three. The first part of my career, Doug Silveri was the most incredible boss ever. I was a 22-year-old, cocky, energetic, happy-go-lucky dude, but he was consistent, kind, and took care of me and taught me a ton and just a beacon of strength and just a wonderful man. And then Greg Gaston in Salisbury, Maryland, he invited me. I moved out from California to Maryland, and I was 24, I think, and it was cold, and I lived in California my whole life. I was like, what is going on here? And I got there in mid-November, and he invited me to Thanksgiving Day, his
Oh,
personal
wow.
Thanksgiving Day family celebration. And he invited me to basketball tournaments and golf, and he just was just an amazing human being. Just amazing. Kindness exuded from these two guys.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to keep going. But those are the first two bosses I had, and they just were tremendous people, caring,
Yeah.
great at what they did, and just took this, like I had a ton of energy, and I was probably hard to deal with, but they were just so kind to me. They really were.
Again, people listening to this, you can be a great leader and great in business and care for the people and do all the things and be kind and also be direct and effective when you need to be.
Yes, they were direct. They told me when I screwed up. He never got mad. He just supported me.
And in those times, those people realize that you have screwed up something is colossal to you, but the way that they react in that moment makes all the difference. And that's when you see leadership really stand out. And you're like, oh, you could have annihilated me. You could have fired me on the spot, but you were actually like, you know what? This is a Fred Mangione thing. We will get through anything together.
Yeah.
And I use those words, like went in my toolbox of leadership, and I use them throughout my own journey with people. We will get through anything together. Let's go. As long as the intention is there, as long as the learning, the growing is there. It just makes such a difference.
It does. Well put, Shauna. And there's that word. Here we go. I knew you and I would get to this at some point. We're just going back and forth. But here's that word in leadership that doesn't come up enough, which I think is so you gave your values, which were tremendous in what you needed as a person growing up from leadership, right? My number one has always been number one. And I tried to do as a leader, and it's a simple one, but it's not. It's caring. It's
Oh yeah.
just simply caring about the human being.
Mhm.
Above everything, I care about you as a person. And like you said, what Freddie
Mhm.
said, our mutual friend, we'll do it together. No matter what happens, we're still here, right?
Yeah.
We're professionals. We're in these roles for a reason, so we're going to get the
Yeah.
job done. But I will not stop caring about you.
Yeah.
That's what I value more than anything.
Totally. I think especially when people are young, like we come into a job and you really do want to be cared about. You don't know how to do your job. You're going to learn it. You're probably scared. I mean, especially in the sports and entertainment industry. I was constantly scared that I was going to go to my seat and wasn't going to be there, or somebody else was going to be in it the next day. Just because of it's a coveted space to be in. And I knew that coming up is my point. But then to have people that actually cared and like I made it a bit of a fail safe organization that I could then, it was less of like I was suffocating every day and like, okay, I can be me. I can figure this out and someone's going to figure this out. They're not out to get me. And I think that's what happens a lot of times is if you don't have a culture where people care, you can really come up or enter. It doesn't have to be even someone's young. I mean, how many times have I've taken a job and been like, oh my God, that person's out to get me. That's no way to operate. That sucks.
We're not around forever. Life is short. So we're at these jobs. It's really not that long in the overall scheme of things. All right, fine, 20 years, that's an anomaly nowadays. But it's say you're there like 2, 3, 5, 6 years, right? You've got a time frame, and you're going to be judged on how you are to people within that time frame. Let's move through together. So at the end, we could say, man, that was cool. I enjoyed being at the Nets, or I enjoyed being it for myself at WMD TV in Salisbury, Maryland in the early 90s. Right? It's like I can't tell you one thing I did or whatever, but it's all about the people, to your point.
I think that sometimes I feel like that part of what you were just saying comes with growth, comes with awareness, comes with years of experience. When you're in it, I think coming up, or you're in it and you're just so entrenched in a role that sometimes you can almost feel this. You've allowed yourself, because I talk a lot about accountability. We allow ourselves to get in these situations where we feel trapped. And we actually then do feel like it is so serious. So I think sometimes we have to go through those experiences and emerge on the other side to be able to look back at it and go, oh, okay, I don't have to take it as serious next time. I don't know. I mean, I think that sometimes people may say that, but you understand it a lot differently when you've gone through it.
Yes, and this goes back to your great foundation for this whole conversation with it, which is the leadership athlete. So I played third base. And making an error at third base, Shauna, I could not stand that. And it was very difficult for me to get over that. So I took that into the professional area in the arena. So when I would make a mistake, which like you just said, I made my share of them like all the time, right? All the way up and all the way through. And I would have that error at third base feeling, and it's like, oh. But then but as a leader, you can't have that. You got to get over it because you're there for other people.
And I will say, it is called leadership athlete, and we do talk about athletics so much. And I also point out to people, you don't have had to have been a competitive athlete to grasp what this is about. Whatever it is in your journey that taught you to operate in a way that you're resilient, you're coachable, to your point about you have an eye to being caring, you're trying to be better every day, you're thinking about yourself, others, and the greater good. That could have come from family. Some people get that from a faith-based situation. Eagle Scout. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to get it. I think that part of the reason why I point to athletic side is one, my own experience, but two, because we can look at professional athletes who are high performing and go, and they're so tangible and go, how did they get there? And how do they stay at the top of their game? I watched one of your episodes one day and you had a gentleman on. He might have been garden music, an older gentleman. And he said that the best athletes and the best musicians still have coaches.
Larry Miller, NYU.
I can't tell you how many people I repeat that to because it's so true. Why do we think that we're just going to arrive at a leadership seat at a senior level in our career and I'm good. I've arrived. I'm the leader. I don't know. You keep working on your game.
1,000%. I have loved this. Shauna, you're the best. This is so great.
I appreciate it. I will have a conversation with you anytime.
Back at you. I love it. I'm wishing you nothing but the best. Thank you, Shauna.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And we thank Shauna very much for being on the show. I have a footnote and a takeaway. First, the footnote. Shauna was named a 2017 Game Changer by Sports Business Journal. From this conversation, you can see why. And the takeaway. Look at all the principles that Shauna shared with us that can be applied to business that she learned as an athlete. The fundamentals, right? Being resilient, being coachable, wanting to get better each and every day, taking advantage of reps, learning from our mistakes, relying on your instincts. Such valuable advice, leadership athlete. What a concept. And we thank Shauna very much for being on the show. And I thank you each and every week, everybody. Take care. Have a great week. And thanks for being part of Keep the Line Moving. Every week, you hear guests on this podcast talk about some of their biggest leadership challenges. As a leader, you want to make an impact on those you lead and reach your organization's goals, while also optimizing your time management. Wherever you are in your leadership journey, we could all use some help. This is what we focus on with our group and individual coaching services. To book a call or get more information, email me directly at chrisg@garganoleadership.com or visit our website at garganoleadership.com. For our podcast and video producer, Jack Radutsky, and our marketing coordinator, Savin Narwal, have a great week, everybody.